You're listening to Head Vomit. The following episode contains crude, rude, and often offensive content that may feel dirty in your ears. If you're concerned about your ears, please choose carefully when and even if to listen. This podcast is ad-libbed. If you are seeking a libbed podcast, look elsewhere. The views expressed are not necessarily those of the creators.
Good to get a beer after a good day's work, isn't it?
Good to get a beer indeed, it is, John.
I'm going to have another beer, do you mind?
Oh, you crack one open. What are you drinking there, John?
I'm drinking the finest of the fine Cornish cider, my friend. What about you? What are you drinking?
I'm drinking Budweiser.
Okay. Well, at least you got those oats in there.
My name is Giles McGrath.
And I am John Barley. And welcome to our podcast, Pitches and Hoes.
Tell me, John, how did you get into hip-hop?
I've got to say, I came into hip-hop from a bit of a strange angle. Perpendicular, if you like. It was in my Year 10 art exam in school. And I was shit at art, so I used to get quite bored, really. I was looking through the Degas, looking through the Monets, and I thought, this is a load of shite, really. But I used to listen to stuff, because they let you listen to stuff in that class.
Well, I never went to school like you. Early age, my father got me out, and he said, son, go plough that field.
Okay.
So it was hard life.
So you didn't have a learning experience then, really, your learning was the real nitty gritty, like Jay-Z says, hard knock life on the streets.
I was there walking along, 12-year-old, and I remember Joe came along in his tractor, and he said, you, there, boy. And I looked at him with my little 12-year-old eyes, and I said, yes. And he said, listen to this. He threw this tape into my hand, and I didn't know what to do.
It was like alien technology, I bet to you. You fucking pitching and hoeing all over the countryside. Scruffy-haired nerf herder. Heggy-headed boy.
So I went to the farmer's market, and I remember they played tapes over the tannoy system. So I ran up into the office, and I just snatched it. Or no, 12 years old. This is the first wrong thing I ever did. And
so your first crime was actually hip-hop related?
When I took the tape out the player, and on it said, Nas, Illmatic. Probably, I'd say, one of the most influential and classic hip-hop albums of all time.
Oh, it was seminal, mate. Seminal.
I mean, we're a rarity, me and you. You know, two farmers.
Yeah.
Hard-working lives.
Yeah.
Outside.
Yeah.
For 90% of the day.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I first met you, I remember that.
Do you?
Yes.
What was that like?
I had not many friends.
No, you kind of gravitate towards each other, don't you? If you like that kind
and
of
I remember we were at that farmers' conference for the wheat. I can't remember.
The wheat and barley seminar.
And I remember I came up to you and you were there with your headphones on.
You did.
And I knew you could not have been listening to folk music because the way you were moving your head.
I was bobbing it up and down.
And only one man who bobs his head up and down could be listening to one type of music.
Exactly.
And that's hip-hop.
It is. The first hip-hop song I actually heard, the first rapping on a record I actually heard was Rage Against the Machine. Zach De La Rocha, actually, his appreciation of hip-hop and the culture got me into hip-hop a bit. I thought, like, that was really the first time my music taste was broadened because before that, I wasn't really bothered about music. And I was about 11 years old. I bought Dr. Dre, The Chronic 2001 was my first rap record.
I remember
it actually came out in 1999. Everyone thinks it came out in 2001 because it's called 2001.
That confused me.
But I bought it in 1999 when it came out. I listened to it. I thought, this is something else.
When I first heard a Dre beat, that really blew my mind.
Oh, phenomenal. I mean, you can't beat the next episode. Or forgot about Dre. And I didn't even know Dre, so to forget about him was kind of strange because I was just getting into him.
Being farmers, we don't come across many people that listen to hip-hop.
We don't come across much music made by anyone except white people. I used to listen to hip-hop and people used to say, what are you listening to that for? You're not black. They used to call me all sorts of names. Say I wanted to be black. I said, just because you like pizza doesn't mean you want to be Italian.
Let's talk about the community, the farming community, and its attitudes towards hip-hop music.
Well, I don't know if there is much of an attitude, really. I think it's gross negligence, if anything. I don't think the farming community has much of an appreciation for the urban attitudes of the people from New York and California. It really depends on whether you've got that kind of mind that can think abstractly and think, well, these people aren't from my area of the planet, but maybe they've got something to say.
I remember my father came upstairs to tell me dinner was ready. And it was funny because he actually flipped out. He was like, get this shit out of my house.
No devil music for me, or you.
And he banished me from listening to it. So anytime I wanted to listen to hip-hop, I had to go outside behind the A-bells.
What was your father's problem with it in particular?
I think he didn't like the vulgar language they used.
Yeah.
And a lot of time they dropped rude words, such as the M-bomb, stuff like that, and he did not like that.
You mean there's a white Cornish farmer that doesn't like the N-word? Your dad's very progressive in certain ways then.
So that brings us nicely onto our next topic.
Well, today's hot topic is something I think has been around in hip-hop since its inception. It's the difference between gangster and conscious rap.
What is conscious rap? Just tell the fans.
Well, conscious rap, I mean, you probably heard some before. Stuff like De La Soul, stuff like Public Enemy, stuff that affects the social and cultural milieu, really. When you're ploughing a field, a combine harvesting a field, I mean, you don't necessarily want to listen to something that's telling you about the plight of the modern African-American male. You might want to listen to someone shooting someone or something like that. You know, it's like a simple day-to-day thing, really.
They were talking about guns.
I mean, we had the big problem with people getting hoed.
My father had a shotgun, and he said, anyone walks on our land, son, get him in your sights and pop him in the leg. And I remember these two ramblers walked through our field unannounced, and I just shot him in the leg.
Well, I have actually killed a man.
You've killed a man?
I've killed a man. Well, only one man, but the problem was he was walking through my field, and well, my father's field at the time, and all I had to hand was my pitchfork, and he was being very aggressive with me, and I said, you know, you're on my land, and I had the Dr. Dre tape in my ear, and it was I forget what song it was now, like it was something like Guilty Conscience or something like that, and I stuck him with my pitchfork and I killed him, and I thought he was a trespasser. Actually, it was a representative from the local agrochemical company. And I got in a lot of trouble for that, because my dad said, if we don't get these chemicals, we're going to be in trouble and the crops are going to fail, and you've just killed one of the main representatives from the agrochemical business. So what are you going to do? So we buried him and covered it up. Now, I'm not going to say I blame Dr. Dre for my actions, but I'm saying maybe if I'd been listening to some De La Soul instead, I would have offered him a cold beer instead of a pitchfork. But you don't know, do you? When you're young and you have these feelings and these emotions, you've got all the testosterone, and you've been working in a field for 7 hours a day, and some guy comes up to you talking in a shirt and tie, talking about like, oh, you're doing it wrong. You know, you're gonna picture him. You're gonna picture him, aren't you?
It's funny you say that, and that you've got a little bit of remorse, because I remember when
I do have remorse. I do. I think about that man every night before I go to sleep. The blood pooling on his shirt. 4 neat holes. I'm over it now, obviously, but sometimes I do wake up in cold sweats and hear Dr. Dre's beats in my head.
When I blew those ramblers' legs off, I don't have much remorse from that situation. They were trespassing on our land.
Well, I think when you use a gun, it removes you from the situation slightly.
I remember I lay back after I did it with a shotgun on my lap, and then suddenly I switched tapes, and then I put Ice Cube in. It Was a Good Day came on, and I felt, yeah, this is...
it chilled you out, it relaxed you. I think that actually it's very interesting that you bring up Ice Cube, actually, because he's a prime example of someone who went from gangster to conscious rapper for a bit, which people forget, actually. And then he went back to gangster again. So he had a brief stint there in about 92, 93. A lot of what was going on in Los Angeles with the riots was very influential in his style of rapping.
Well, I remember there were riots in the fields.
Agrarian revolution.
The workers felt like they were getting paid enough.
The field hands were complaining that they weren't getting enough wages.
But I remember it was all nonsense at the end of the day, because the pesticides we were putting on the land made the ants go fucking huge.
I remember the giant sheep. I've still got one of their heads hung up on the wall of my further study. Gangster rap is talking about the problems that a lot of the people have on the streets. I mean, it might not be as eloquent as people talking about higher forms of consciousness or anything like that, or doing what's good for a community, but they're talking about, I've gone Cockney again now, fuck. When you're relying on the radio and what's popular to feed you what you like, I think you'd get highly influenced by it. I mean, if you heard a washing up machine going 24 hours a day, you'd probably...
You'd go out there and you'd buy a vinyl record of a washing machine.
You would, yeah, I think you would. If that washing machine was presented to you in a...
musical format.
Musical format. Young people want to listen to songs that are on the radio that they've heard before. They want to listen to stuff that played in the clubs. They don't necessarily want to listen to socially conscious rap. I mean, you can't be in a club and one song is The Little John, and then the next song is Joe Metro by Blue Scholars, you know, talking about the proletarian blues and stuff. You can't put that on when people are trying to enjoy their vodka martinis.
In the hip-hop industry, there are artists that don't get along. Would you like to tell me a little bit more about that, John?
Well, I think one of the first beefs that I paid attention to was Nas and Jay-Z. That was the primest cut of beef I've...
The biggest
hip-hop beefs. I really do appreciate both men's lyricism, but I think, for me personally, I've never been a huge Jay-Z fan. I know that's controversial to say, because he is a very popular artist.
Jay-Z was all about the money though, wasn't he?
Well, clearly, he's an entrepreneur. He's always been about the money. And I think one of the biggest things about Jay-Z is put the money in the products first before his lyricism or his music. But Jay-Z, I would say Jay-Z
is the most financially secure.
Is the most financially secure, and I think we leave it at that, really.
Right, so that leads us on nicely to our next topic.
Whatever happened to DMX? DMX was a very successful hip-hop artist in the 90s. And he made a lot of good songs. He specialised in club bangers. But he also specialised in a gruff New York accent. And I think some of his key works, including Party Up and X Gon' Give It To You, have stood the test of time. Get 'em, boy. I used to play that as an alarm clock to get me up to go and milk the cows. You know, I'm going to milk some fucking cows.
Well, I remember I didn't go to school, but I used to take X as me. Because you replace
used to take
X with
ecstasy,
me.
did you?
It's like maths.
Oh.
X Gon' Give It To You. X be me.
Oh, I understand what you're saying now. I thought you were taking ecstasy. I thought you said I took X.
X gonna be me. I was there on the country lanes in my tractor, and I had that song bumping out the tape deck. I had a huge queue of cars behind me. Huge, because tractors take up roads, everybody.
And it was easier not to give a fuck if you were playing DMX.
I turned round and I stuck up my finger, and I said, X gonna give it to you. In this situation, X was me.
I mean, how'd you go from successful multi-millionaire hip-hop artist, starring in his own movies, all of a sudden, he's getting arrested. I heard a story about DMX, I'll regale you with it right now. So he was in an airport and he was late for a flight. So instead of waiting and checking in or getting the next flight, he ploughed through the airport gates with his Humvee. Sure. And he rode right up to the plane and they said, you can't do that, mate. There's security protocols.
I'd heard that in jail he went for the Great Depression.
Something soured his character, didn't it? Because he went in all out, and he came out all. It's dark, hell is hot, and jail is not a nice place. When people blow up and they're not used to having money and fame and all this sort of stuff.
Especially if you're from the streets.
It's very hard psychologically to work all that out. I mean, you've only got to look at Kanye West and what's happening to him at the moment. He's clearly been through several breakdowns, and he's done it all in the public sphere. As important as DMX was to the game, his beats were very good, and he never really changed that much, but he just fell off a lot. I think probably his psychological state was the biggest problem.
Distribution might have a big part of it.
Well,
because I know if my potatoes have got bad distribution, they're not getting to the right people.
But it's the quality of the potato, and it's how the potato is grown. Now it's the wrap up. We hope you've enjoyed the first show of Pitches and Holes. We've covered many topics. We've covered them pretty poorly. I have been John Barley.
And I'm Giles McGrath.
And join us next week where we'll be discussing everything in the world of hip hop.